so this is the start of step 2, stage 2, and it is for some most exciting part, and that is decorating your wreath. So you would have chosen Deck the Halls or Silent Night based on the fact that you like the designs, the accessories, who knows, but the selection of accessories are really now down to you to decorate the wreath how best you would like. And I never limit decorations to just what we supply. It can very well be things that you have at home. Some people like to, at the very end, put lights, battery pack lights around them. Some people always have maybe some traditional decorations that they like to include in some of their arrangements, and they pop those on. I'm going to show you, obviously, the ones that have been supplied with your flower box, how to affix them. The principle behind attaching decorations is roughly the same, and we can most definitely look at other ways to attach. I mean, it could just be simple just by placing, but you are not limited to those that you have come with. It's just that that's what we're going to demonstrate again today. So this is a Deck the Halls pack. Silent Night will have different decorations. The process by which you attach them to your wreath is exactly the same. The troubleshooting is exactly the same. It's just I had to pick one box to do a video on. So the first thing is you've got your wreath. The main starting point is to find, if you are keeping the twine on, that is the top of your wreath. That is where decorations, well, basically you'll start from, as in if you have decided with the position of your bow, which will be the last thing we attach, but almost the first thing we think about. So Deck the Halls design, currently the Hessian bow, goes on the bottom. Silent Night, the ribbons go on the top. But again, it is all down to you. You can actually swap it around. This can sit at the top, the ribbons, the velvet ribbon or the satin ribbon can sit at the bottom. It doesn't matter. But why we don't attach this at the beginning is because it's probably the more delicate of the decorations to add, which is why we put it at the end. But I always say, have an idea if you want a ribbon or a bow, where you're going to put it, because your decorations are going to go around it. So the trick is, and I'll get there, find the top of your twine, that's the top. And again, like the real wire, that's how we're going to place it in front of us. We're going to lay the wreath down again, keep that as the top. And the best way to do this, and even me, who make many things like this, I often need to lay it out. So you can lay everything on top of your wreath and work systematically like that. I'm going to put the bow at the bottom. I'm not going to attach it yet. If you find it easier to attach the bow first, then please do. The problem is you're going to be turning the wreath over on top of itself. So what you end up doing, like we fluffed out the wreath, you're going to be doing that every time with the bow if you feel like you want to get a real view of it, so you don't want to damage it. And I would say the more you flatten these bows and reopen them up, probably, I'd say probably it makes them look a little more worn. So I would try to avoid putting, especially the Hessian, on first. And the ribbons on the Silent Night are so long that they're just going to get in your way. So my advice would be place it, don't put it. So place it there. So you've got a selection of things. Everything is wired. Everything is wired. It is the fiddliest part and the time-consuming part. And I've just been kind to everyone this year by doing it. So again, they're in odd numbers. That's how we work in floristry. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and it's kind of, you can have symmetry, you can be asymmetrical. It's up to you. What I would say is look at your bigger, eye-catching decorations and where you're going to place them. You can cluster and group together, or you can put them individually. It's all about finding space, having a look. Does it work? And if it does, then great. So you can put decorations in the middle, but to give it depth, to allow the wreath to have perspective from all angles, it's often good to kind of not just focus on just feeding the top and to kind of come in from the sides. That allows the wreath to, the wreath almost looks a bit bigger if you start popping decorations in at the side. And naturally where you've got gaps, we spoke about that at the beginning, if you naturally see a gap and you're not sure if it's worthy of an extra bundle of foliage, it might actually be that something like this or something circular like one of the baubles fits it just perfectly and makes sense to put it in there. So yeah, lots of things to consider when decorating your wreath. So I've laid a few things out. I'm going to start popping things in. And again, you have got wires. Some of them vary in length size, some of them are slightly shorter, some of them are slightly longer. The idea of this is that we are going to go into the moss frame. Similarly, like I explained at the end of stage 1, if you've got strong stems, the moss acts as a bit like a sponge, it kind of draws in. It's the same with these, we should be able to go the whole way through, and if we get any wire out at the end, we're going to turn it up on itself and pop it back into the moss frame, and that will keep the strength to the moss. So I'm going to start going in. You can leave yours on and kind of move them around. I am going to just take them off. Another way, having done the workshops, what people have done before is that they've taken a picture on their phone once they've done the decorations, and then they leave their phone. Obviously you'll be watching this on a device, but then they leave their phone so they can see the design that they've created. So this is why I'm saying it's in stages. You don't have to do it all in the space of an evening, because you can just take your time. You can take your time to enjoy decorating it how you want, designing it, looking for inspiration somewhere else. So let's start putting them in. So we're just going to, you can lift up your bundles, you can find an area, find a gap, and we're going to poke the first one in. The thickness of your wreath may affect sometimes the ability to sometimes be able to poke through. So I've got to look for the end of this, and when I found it on the other side, I can just turn around and poke straight in. And it's the same with the pine cones. I'm going to use one of these up here. Kind of, again, you're feeding it through. This is the fiddly part, see? So, where your luscious green wreath has got so much foliage, I'm trying to take it through. So you can see the wire at the other end, and I'm pulling it through. I've got wire at the other end. I'm finding a space on my frame so that my wire is extended and sits flat on the back of the frame. So I'm not going to go round the wreath with the extra wire, because I'll end up squashing the foliage at this point. Then pop another one. Just looking where I've been. If your wires bend when you're putting in, just take it out and straighten it out with your hand. They're coated wires. These won't come off, the colour won't come off on your hand. And then start again. And again, turn it over onto the frame. Some of your wires, like this one for example, this is a short wire. Hopefully they won't be that short. I don't know why this one is. But all is not lost. Again, we can go in, and that should be secure enough between the foliage in the moss to stay put. You've just got to make sure you have actually fed it through so it sits into the moss frame. So that one doesn't come through, but you can see I fed it through and it's absolutely fine. yourself. You might have to move this around while you're doing it, just so you can get some flexibility. Don't feel like you need to be rigid with it, but always keep coming back to where your twine is at the top, because that's essentially where you're hanging it, and also where your ribbon is going to sit at the bottom. Just so you know that you're not putting too many decorations that are just going to get in the way of the bow. And if you do, they are flexible, these decorations. They're on wire. You can bend them into position, bend them into shape. So the fruits go in. And turn it back on itself. I'm a bit of a fan of lots of decoration, and even when I've got lots of colour, I've got lots of stuff going on. So normally we have Christmas tunes on at this point, but I figured you probably won't be able to hear me. So this is quite a long wire. Yours won't come like this. I'm going to chop it a little bit, because the long wires are actually way more fiddly to get in, because you're having to thread quite a long length through, which is tough when you're getting it through the foliage. But so make sure I'm top and bottom again. Make sure I know where I am. Again, you don't have to use all these decorations. If at some point you were looking at it and you think, oh, actually, I'm really happy with what I've done. I don't think I need another orange. I don't think, I like the foliage to speak for itself. Then you don't need to. All these decorations are yours to keep. So you can, if you've got a fireplace, you can, if you've got a little fake garland that you put around the fireplace, or maybe a real one, you can actually just intertwine them, and again they will, or they should in warmer climate, just dry out, and obviously leave that nice Christmassy smell. So I've had burning throughout this my candle, Carly's candle, and this one I think is winter pine, and you will also be getting in your packs, or you should have, your candles. So the idea is that you can burn them whilst you're making your wreath, or you can save them for another time. But either way, it smells lovely in here. It smells like Christmas. So I'm not always lifting my wreath frame up, I'm just feeling for them, because actually you can feel underneath and just turn them back on themselves. So you're essentially just poking them in. Have a look at it in a minute and just see how happy I am with it. I think we're nearly done. Always make sure you don't have any wires sticking out. And again, you can feel that on the back of your wreath. Just make sure I've got some symmetry. I'm actually not even sure if I'm going to use all these apples. That wire's a bit too long for me. decorated. There's not really any symmetry to it. I've placed them not just on forward facing, but side angles as well, tops. And I've even put, so my twine is sat up here. I have even put a couple of decorations here because I'm going to stick my Hessian ribbon underneath so it still frames it. So the final bit is the ribbon, which is under the table. This is what I mean when you get creative, you lose things, so make sure it's all in front. So, ribbon is on a wire. It is exactly the same process that you have used to decorate, and that is, you position it like we did at the beginning. Are you happy? Mine is just going to go on the edge. Am I happy with it here? It's either way. And then it's the same thing, you just poke the wire through the frame, so through the foliage, into the moss and out the other side. And then you take the wire back round on itself, pop it back into the moss frame. So I'm going to hold, and this is where I am going to hold my wreath up because it is a bit heavier, this. The ribbon is definitely heavier than the decorations. And I'm going to go along the moss frame, find a space, and just poke in my wire end. Just make sure my decorations, and again you can go back and fluff it all up, move things around a little bit, but making sure that's all even. That is the end of stage 2. So by now nothing should come off in your hands, and even if you don't have the twine you can obviously hold it up like this, but I've got the twine so I'm going to hold it up and have a look. Yeah, that's the end of stage 2.